First time countdown's number 2 story tonight's worst persons in the world of bronze to Fox's Glenn Beck. Last Friday night, Bill Maher and his panel, me included, briefly criticized Beck's rabid right-wing paranoia. He spent the first 15 minutes of his show yesterday defending himself. The media seems to be portraying a picture of anyone who is worried enough to prepare for the future as crazy. Oh, they're crazy. I'm crazy. You're crazy. We're all crazy together. Glenn? Hell no. Just you. Not your viewers or listeners. You're crazy. The runner-up, Gary Bauer, former presidential candidate, former Reagan domestic policy advisor, now president of American Values, which, despite the name, is not a discount septic tank operation, writing at Politico a mere 2 months after the last of dozens of conflicting Pentagon reports suggested with almost no verification that 61 former Gitmo detainees had been identified as returning to terrorism. Some of the 61, by the way, were so identified because they appeared in a documentary. Seriously. Surprisingly, Bauer agrees with me that Gitmo may have in fact created terrorists, turned innocent people unfairly detained into guys with understandable vendettas. But, he writes, while many liberal commentators believe inhumane treatment and religious persecution transforms detainees into suicide bombers and high-level terrorists, I believe the opposite is true, that the unprecedented and extreme religious accommodation granted to Gitmo prisoners has created a culture of Islamic radicalization. You heard it. We were too nice to them. Here's the bigger picture Mr. Bauer has thoroughly missed. When he mentioned me by name as one of the commentators who believed Gitmo had created terrorists, he made up the rest. I never cited the inhumane treatment or any religious persecution. Those would be secondary. The primary reason you might be turned into a terrorist because you were detained by the U.S. without charge for years and kept in a military prison is because you were detained by the U.S. without charge for years and kept in a military prison. Nobody at Gitmo was convicted by us of anything beforehand, and only a couple were convicted of anything afterwards. Statistics alone suggest we kept at least one innocent man imprisoned there for years. And guess what? That's bad enough. But our winner, Governor Bobby Jindal of Louisiana. A month ago tonight it was, when he gave his wonderful response to President Obama's address to the joint session of Congress. That's when he criticized the stimulus plan. While some of the projects in the bill make sense, their legislation is larded with wasteful spending. It includes $140 million for something called volcano monitoring. Instead of monitoring volcanoes, what Congress should be monitoring is the eruption of spending in Washington, D.C. This just in from Anchorage, Alaska. Mount Redoubt, the 10,000-foot volcano 100 miles southwest of Anchorage, erupted for a 6th time this week, sending into the air volcanic ash as hard as rock fragments with jagged edges which can puncture skin and even vehicles like airplanes. The eruptions are expected to continue for weeks or even months and will be monitored. Oh, no, they won't be monitored because Governor Jindal didn't know what volcano monitoring was. And instead he had that $140 million in funds for volcano monitoring redirected into a Republican think tank devoted to coming up with better jokes for his next speech. Governor Bobby, well, it's a volcano, Jindal, today's worst person in the world.